Here went my
All
phone
right.
ringing.
Well, welcome everyone to the Town of Hamilton Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, January 27th. We'll start the meeting off with a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, this list seems like it's growing instead of getting shorter, which is a problem.
You're not kidding.
This is for board and committee openings. I'll start off with the Council on Aging has one opening. The Recreation Committee has an opening. The Hamilton Historic District Commission has a full-time opening and an alternate position opening. The Open Space Committee has an opening, and the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School Committee has a vacancy. This position is appointed by the moderator, but we're just trying to help the moderator by publicizing the fact that it's open. Okay. All right, now's the time on the agenda for a 3-minute public comment. If anybody has anything that's not on the agenda tonight that they'd like to address the Board of Selectmen with, feel free. No, okay. All right. Now it's time for Board of Selectmen reports and the Town Manager report. I want to start over here with you, Bill.
Sure, I don't have much. Town Hall Building Committee, I think some new plans, elevations were released in the last week, so I just want to make sure they get on the, whatever, the town website. But yeah, so they were able to, I think, accommodate all the needs and asks of historic people as well as the functionality of the place. They also were able to sort of elevate the exterior of the building. When we talked about the elevations of the options for the stairwell, there was some modern things of glass, but they ended up, right now the elevation of the exterior stairwell is to mimic the architecture of the building, so it looks very similar to it. So same siding, same trim, same roofing, so
Yeah.
looks all right. So, but people should take a look at it. It's on, I think, hopefully, Joe, it's on the website. So I just got it last week in an email. So I was able to attend the school committee meeting last week. There's some budget challenges going to be coming up in front of us, but they were over budget for this year, and then because of that, they're going to be even further over budget for next year, because they're going to be looking for the money to recoup, but they were over budget last year in addition to adjusting it to the next budget. So so they're going to be reviewing that with us. There's a calendar out on their meetings for that. So there's also a screening committee that was created for the new superintendent, and I'm happy to say I was selected to be part of that screening committee, so I'll be serving as a sort of a member at large on that committee. About 12 people will help. Sort of what we did for town manager. We'll have a consultant come in and pick and give us candidates, and then we sort of narrow it down to 3, and then we give those 3 candidates to the school committee who debate and vote on that. So that will start process will start next month.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Rosie?
I don't have a lot either. Just happy to say that the weekly Selectmen Hour meetings seem to be getting busier. I had there's been somebody coming almost every week now, and I had 3 people today, so that's really fun to be able to talk to and get to know citizens and their issues. The next thing, the wetlands bylaw revision, the amendment that I'm hoping to have approved by my colleagues and bring to town meeting. There'll be a meeting about that on February 12th at the Concom, and the Concom is hoping that we'll have the new agent in place by then. I've heard it's in the final phases, so that's pretty exciting. The next thing is donations from the bonfire will go to particular 8th graders. I apologize, I forgot to mention this last week. We had 2 8th graders who were just terrific at helping us, and then we will also be donating some money. The plan would be to help defray the costs of the trip to Washington, D.C. I will tell you that there is an applicant for the Historic District position, and we are waiting to hear the recommendation from the current Historic District Commission, but that's very exciting because, as you said, Jeff, we have several openings, and it's nice to see that we have yet another citizen stepping up. And then the Pet and Homestead, I have not been able to attend any of the monthly meetings, but the lectures, but I hear that they're going well, and I'm hoping to be able to attend the lecture in February.
Great. Thank you, Rosie. Sean, how about you?
I don't really have much tonight. Most of my boards and committees haven't met in the last couple weeks, but the Open Space Committee is still working diligently on getting that open space and rec plan finished. This last week, and I think either maybe this coming meeting or they just had it, that they are looking at the town of Wenham's open space and rec plan and having one of their representatives come and go over some different parts that they were curious about, and hopefully we can get that document all wrapped up sometime in the next couple months here or less.
Great. All right. Thank you. Darcy?
Hi, I did attend, and earlier this week, there was a Hamilton Wenham Mothers Club meeting, and it was discussing how our democracy works, why it's unique, why it's the best form of government for small towns. And we had a really good attendance. I was shocked. There were over 30 young moms there. It was pretty good. I used to be one, incidentally. It was just really
Not that
interesting.
long ago.
But yeah, I just thought it went well, and maybe we'll do more of those too.
Oh,
You know,
great.
more informational and civic-minded. You know, getting people to think about how they can contribute to
Right.
their time
Right,
and effort in little ways. Doesn't have to be big ways.
right.
So that's about it.
Oh, that's great.
That's good.
And the Hamilton Wenham Mothers Club is a great organization. They've been around over 100 years now. And when my wife was in it and helping organize and stuff, there was about 150 or so members, and it's some surrounding communities as well, but it's a really good support group for new moms and
Yeah,
older moms and whoever wants to join.
Great. I'll piggyback on, Bill, what you had to say about the Town Hall Building Committee. They did meet. I've had a couple meetings. You're right, in terms of the designs, they've really gotten the buy-in of the Hamilton Historic District Commission, which is obviously an important step, both for the external drawings, like you talked about, Bill, for the elevator bank essentially and the staircase, and then internally keeping the stage upstairs and having a better layout to how that new auditorium or meeting space will look. The one thing that they also talked about was the schedule. And because there was a change in the design, originally the hope was to go to this town meeting this spring with a fully design project that had been bid out for construction costs, so we could go to the town meeting and with the exact number and ask for that amount. Because we changed the plans, because of input from the community, the projects got delayed, so we're not gonna be in a position to do that at this Springtown meeting. The goal would be to be able to do that by the fall town meeting. So that's the only other major update on that. And yeah, I think that's all I had. Joe, how about you?
I'll try to be brief, but following on what Rosie had said, the town has hired a new conservation agent. Based on the recommendation of the interview panel, we have offered the position to Albert Cummins, and he has accepted. Be starting sometime in around the February 10th or February 3rd, I'm not sure. He gave his notice already for the other part-time job he had, so he'll be working 19 hours a week for us, and he already works as the part-time conservation agent in West Newbury, where he works 20 hours a week. So probably at the next regularly scheduled meeting, we'll be asking you to take a vote to designate him as a special municipal employee because he works for two towns, or he'll be working for two towns. Repeating a little bit of some of the important dates the town clerk has out there, and regarding upcoming elections, the nominating period for the town elections ends February 20th. To date, no one has pulled papers for selectmen still, so she asked me to mention that today. Also, the town clerk would like people to know that the presidential primary will be held on Tuesday, March 3rd, and early voting for that primary will be the week of February 24th through Friday, the 28th. We'll have exact hours and such on as it gets closer. We are nearing the finish line on our hiring process for the Community Projects Coordinator, and I'm hoping to be able to announce the candidate at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. The town has also received approximately a dozen resumes for the Regional Human Resources Director position with Manchester and Rockport, and you have it on your agenda tonight to hopefully endorse the IMA, and we're hoping that the boards of selectmen in the other two towns, they've both taken votes to support the IMA. They haven't taken votes to sign it yet, but hopefully we'll all be getting you to do that soon. The town is in the thick of our budget development with tonight's meeting, opening the annual town meeting warrant. We have a joint budgetary meeting with the schools, the FinComs, and the boards of selectmen on Wednesday night from 7 to 9 at the school department, the Puker School. We have posted it as a joint meeting for your board and the FinCom and with the school committee and the Wenham boards as well. So we'll all be there, ready to go. And then you all know we make our budget proposal to you next Monday, February 3rd. Busy time. Something that I've mentioned to some of you recently, separately, but not made a public declaration on, is that we're looking at doing a joint fueling program with the town of Wenham. Both towns have needs to upgrade or replace their current fueling stations. And we're gonna do a pilot program whereby the town of Hamilton will fuel our vehicles at the iron rails, using their above-ground tanks. That will save us some money in operations this year, and if this pilot's successful, we'll be able to later in the year propose buying a joint tank with Wenham that would serve both towns' needs in
That's
one
good.
location.
We've talked about that in the past, Collins
so
report and
we're-
stuff, so that's good.
The thing is, we don't know what we don't know about whether or not it can work operationally, so let's try it for a while and see if we can make it work. It'll add a little bit of time, potentially, for some of our employees when they have to go gas up their vehicles at the beginning of the shift or whatever, but we're pretty sure that we can at least get it into a position where we can work with it for several months and see if it's worthwhile pursuing permanently.
And will this be better than we'd looked at? I don't know how much ground we got on the gas cards for like Cumberland Farms and
We
stuff
could
like
always do that as well. We haven't pursued it. It's been talked about.
I know it was an issue with some of the DPW trucks getting in and out of the
Yeah,
gas
so
stations.
that's the problem for us, is that some of our larger vehicles, the fire trucks and some of the large DPW vehicles, wouldn't be able to go there. It would be a good, additional measure for pickup trucks and
Patrol
police
cars,
cruisers.
stuff like that.
But for the big equipment, it probably wouldn't
Right.
suit our needs on a regular basis. So that's just, you have to kind of maybe build an extra 10 minutes into, the start of work,
To get out the iron rail and stuff, yeah.
get out there and get it done.
And Joe, an advantage to having our own, maybe a joint town tank would be that we save about 40 cents a gallon in gas tax. Is that correct? Did I understand that
No, we
correctly?
we buy our fuel the way most municipalities do. The state has a kind of a daily rack price, and we buy our fuel through, Tim, since you're here, I'll call on you. What's the name of the vendor we use? Is it Burke?
Yeah,
Sons?
we buy through bulk state
It's
bid
bulk-
price,
bulk state
Dennis
bid price,
Dennis
so
K.
it's-
Burke.
It's
So we get a pretty good discount on the large volume.
Right,
And we're
right.
bulk
currently
price.
buying it at the same place with the same vendor as Wenham. So there might be some modest decrease in price because we'd be ordering that amount of fuel to one location instead of
Right.
two locations. But that's not the principal driver. The principal driver, I think, is in the capital expenditure. Instead of both towns going out and spending $250,000 to build a
Right,
new
it
tank.
makes sense.
We could jointly do that and save ourselves some money and still serve both towns' purposes.
So there isn't a savings in the gas tax price?
It would be the same price. We're a large volume
So it would
bulk.
just be the
It would
volume
the same.
discount.
It would be the
Okay.
same price.
We're tax exempt, the state, we don't have to pay the state taxes or surcharges on
Yeah.
fuel, so we get paid what's called the rack rate plus an escalator that's allowed under the contract with the state, so.
Right, and our ordering, there's two, if you order a smaller amount, you pay more. We're over that small amount every time we order, so we pay the larger volume,
Yeah.
reduced rate.
That's good, that's good, anything to save some money. And then the only last question that I have about it is, have you decided on a location yet? I know Iron Rail is the sort of site right this moment.
That's where we're gonna be going, for the interim. We'll talk about it as we're going through the pilot program. Iron Rails does have room. They have enough room to get in and out of there. We don't think it would interrupt. They already do a good job of keeping that open for their trucks to get in and out in a snow event. So the same thing, if we were sending our trucks over there in the middle of a snowstorm to fuel up, just drop the plow as you go in and push the snow out of the way so that the next guy behind you can get in too. It shouldn't be that bad. But again, like I said, we don't know what we don't know yet, so we'll try it out and see if it can work.
I think sounds like a good idea.
And I'll also let you know that the LED signboard for in front of the public safety building is moving forward. We've awarded a contract to the bidder, and we've put all of the funds into the right line item, so we should be able to move forward with that, weather permitting, in the next month or two, Tim?
Weather permitting, yep.
I said weather permitting, don't worry. I didn't put you on the spot.
Joe, did you say when you were gonna start the kind of pilot program for the gas at Iron Rail?
Town council's looking at an agreement for the two towns to sign. I believe because it's just a purchasing of goods, I'll be able to sign the contract. It won't need a Board of Selectmen's vote. Wenham may need a Board of Selectmen's vote, so I have to get the contract from town council and run it by them.
Okay.
But we should be able to get this done. I'm hoping to be able to do it sooner than later.
Yeah.
So, because at this point, next year, I'd be asking for the money to, jointly build a tank if we're gonna pursue that, so.
And Tim, how
The
big
more
is it?
time we have in it, the better.
Tim, how big is the tank we have?
We have 4,000 diesel, 6,000 gas.
So we've talked loosely with Bill Tyak, the operations, the DPW director in Wenham, and he has the same size tank. He doesn't think that there'd be a need to necessarily upgrade
Upgrade.
that, but again, we don't know until we
The usage and everything, yeah.
So, but the driving price on the tank isn't the size of the underground, or isn't the size of the holding tank, it's the number of dispensers and the
Right.
software that go along with it. So, we might be looking to go from 2 to 4 anyway, but
Right.
we'd be splitting that with Wenham, so it wouldn't, the
Right.
cost increase
It'd be like half, right? That makes sense.
We'd still be spending less money.
Right.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Okay, next up is the consent agenda item. If there's anything that you'd like to put on hold and separate it out of the consent agenda, just please let me know as I read through them. Approve minutes for the November 18th, 2019 joint meeting, Selectmen and Planning Board meeting. Approve minutes from the December 2nd, 2019 Selectmen's meeting. Approve minutes December 16th, 2019 Selectmen's meeting. Declare certain public works equipment as surplus, which is, see attached in the packet. Approve the updated senior center standards of behavior.
I'd like to chat about that for just,
Okay, so we'll hold that.
Thanks.
Take that out. All right, let's see. Request from Greenbelt to construct an equipment shed at Donovan Reservation.
Hold on that one.
All right. Request by Little League to install new scoreboard at Patton Park.
I'm
I'd
gonna
like
put a
to,
hold on that because I see Lou here. He's gonna wanna say something.
Okay.
I'd like to chat about that too.
All right. Approve request to purchase cemetery lot. So we're gonna hold,
I make a motion to approve all items not held.
Second.
all right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, so the first item,
Senior Center.
senior center standards of behavior. First item up for
So
discussion.
the senior center currently has a standards of behavior that was adopted by a previous board of selectmen many years ago. When I had met with the Council on Aging Board back in, I want to say May, they had said that they were working on updating that. They had found some of the language to be just a little restrictive, and they wanted to ease that a little. According to the senior center director, Mary Beth Lawton, what you have in your packets was approved by the COA at their October meeting, and for it to be official, the Board of Selectmen needs to adopt it. So that was why it was sent out.
I think I'm gonna, I was wondering if we should have it looked at by the town council, just to make sure no one feels their First Amendment rights are being abridged. But I read it, it seemed pretty straightforward and very looser than the last one I saw. So I guess I'm comfortable with what I've
Yeah,
read.
I just didn't know that, I didn't know the process.
Yeah,
that
it
you-
had come
that
through
they
the
went
COA
through.
board.
Yeah. Okay,
Back when Stacy Verge was still on, she was working on
Okay.
writing it, a lot of it, so
that's fine,
I
that's
think this
fine.
is a friendlier version.
I think that was their aim.
Yeah, I think it's good. I looked at the whole thing over,
Yeah.
it's good.
All right. So,
vote on that then,
can I
since you
have a
held it?
motion to approve?
I move that we approve the, where are we here? The updated senior center standards of behavior.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item up is a request from Greenbelt to construct an equipment shed at Donovan Reservation.
Should have had in your packets a letter from the Greenbelt along with some photographs and a map. This is,
They're moving something instead of
yeah, my
constructing?
understanding from a different piece of property, not one that's under your jurisdiction. But they had, looks to be a fairly straightforward, kind of a pre-construction building. It's a
Yeah.
shed. So they term it an equipment shed. Evidently, the agreement with Hamilton helping to purchase the property requires a vote of the Board of Selectmen for them to put any structure on the property. And so they're fulfilling their responsibility and asking for your permission to,
Do they have to file anything with the planning board or
They would have
conscom?
they would have to apply to the building inspector, and the building inspector would determine if it was either in a conservation area or needed anything from the, shouldn't need anything from the planning board. If it was viewed as contrary to the zoning law, it would go to the ZBA.
Right.
If it's viewed as needing something from conservation, the building inspector should forward them to there. But this would be the first step. They would pull the
That was my question. We're just the first step. We're not the final step. Okay.
This just allows them to pull the building permit.
And is it just on blocks or something? Doesn't look like there's a slab or anything. Is it gonna be gravel?
Yeah, it looks, in this picture, it looks like where they have it, they've tried to level it out with blocks and the existing topography. That information would come to light when they talk to the building inspector about how they intend to install it, so, the building inspector would have some leeway to suggest certain kinds of buildings.
So I just think we should reword it. It says we're approving their process, because we're not approving the shed, we're approving the somebody else is gonna approve the shed, right? We're just.
I
so I
kinda
don't-
agree with
I don't
that.
know the proper wording for that, but if somebody wants to come up with a,
So,
But I think we're-
approve the Greenbelt's request to seek the building department's permission to construct an equipment shed at the Donovan Fields.
So
yeah,
moved.
so moved.
Second that?
Sec-
Second, all right. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is a request by Little League to install a new scoreboard at Patton Park.
And I held
We have
this
copies
not
of
'cause
it,
I
so we're
don't
good.
You all did.
disagree
Yes.
with it, but I know
Yes,
that
this right here.
Lou's here and might wanna.
Anybody not have it? Most importantly, the picture of this.
Yeah.
I made copies.
I'll take one, just so you don't feel like you've made them in vain.
All that.
I've got one, thank
Archer
you.
Insurance, color printed, the ways, Tim, I'm gonna leave them with you too. If anybody else is interested in it, so, this is not our first time trying to, get this done. I think it's just a product of, you run out of bandwidth in a given Little League season, but, we've got a new board this year with 7 new members, and there's a lot of fight on the board, where everybody's locked in. and-
wanna fight.
No, but
Good
people
fight.
are, good fight. People are full of new energy, and I think it's a really great thing. So I do feel confident that we will, within our control, not lose sight of this project and push it through. We're here to disclose it to you folks, to let you know that we're obviously at your mercy. We'll work with you in any way. We're donating all the funds for the scoreboard, as well as looking for the labor costs to put the scoreboard up professionally. You know, it requires some footing. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Cheeseman scoreboard, but it's almost identical. And the current location that we'd like to put it is at the corner of the tennis courts, blocking really that existing electrical structure. For those in the audience, it's right in our right field against the tennis court, literally blocking the electrical fixtures, which are in a chain link section. It'll be for use for us primarily, but there's no reason flag football wouldn't be able to use it in the off-season. It would be there. And I'm not sure that the high school football team ever holds scrimmages there, inter-team, but they too would have controls and be able to, jazz up a scrimmage during a practice. I think that's really the extent of my elevator speech.
Lou, is there some type of, I have the black and white version, is there some type of screening here other than the scoreboard?
There's not. What you're looking at was a rendering done, I think, in 2017, and I'm not sure if it came from this body or ours volunteering. I think there may have been discussion about some shrubs around at least the steel pillars, which you would argue would do well, especially now where this steel structure is going in front of an electrical box.
Yeah.
I think we could, for relatively short money,
Yeah, I think it'd be nice, beautification, some boxwoods or something there.
if that were a requirement of this, we would gladly accept. Yep. Maybe
Because
some,
that is kind of an eyesore, and this would,
I think
pretty
this
up
would
that
do
area a
well
little
to
bit.
secure. We'd like it to look better too. It's our, I'm not sure of who's familiar, but Hamilton Wenham Little League is the host of a 20 community tournament at the end of the year, the Hamilton Wenham Little League Invitational. And I think that, some upkeep to the various properties does well for us in perception of our whole region, really. Boxford, Topsfield, Newburyport, Beverly, they all come in for this 2-week event.
so you guys will cover install, insurance, all that kind of stuff. Are we paying the electric bill on it?
Yeah, I imagine it's gonna be on our property and
Right.
tied into our electrical, so, for a signboard, I don't.
mean, I doubt it's gonna be
think
that
the electric would be that much.
Yeah.
What do the lights cost us, do you know?
I don't know.
Have you looked into a solar application?
There are solar applications. They're significantly more money. And the thought was that Wenham may have some data on what our scoreboard costs. I don't know if it's separately metered.
The Cheeseman one?
Yep. But the one at Cheeseman would run really identical to this.
Yeah, and that's really not, I mean, it's used during the season, but I'm sure it's not infinitesimal, but I'm sure.
I did some quick math on this last year, and using what I would expect this to cost in electricity for literally an hour and a half twice a week. I mean, it's minor. My thought was that it would take a considerable amount of years for us to net out the savings for the increased expense for solar.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I
and-
mean, if
and-
you're using it all the time at a high school or something like that, maybe, but,
And unless it would power the lights too.
right.
Yeah, that would be the coup.
Can I ask the size of this?
You got me.
I think it's almost the same exact size as the Cheeseman one.
It is.
Right.
That's the easy answer. We're actually still shopping for the final one. So to give you the actual specs is not possible tonight. I think that if size were important, we would just work under whatever parameters you set forth.
Well, the reason I say that is because there are a lot of things at Patton Park as it is. There's never been a big sign there, and I love the Little League, I love the kids. I just am not sure that I feel comfortable with this yet another piece of equipment in Patton Park. And I, like I said, I respect the Little League. I absolutely love the kids. I'd do anything for them. But I'm
Bought us
just not
pizza.
sure. That's right. I love them. And I would do that in a heartbeat again. But I don't know. I just think aesthetically, is this something that I want to add to Patton Park? I'm not sure.
Could I comment on that?
Please.
I think if you went down and laid eyes on the existing bare electrical box,
I just used it for the bonfire. I know all about
I
it.
think this would do well to disguise that. And with the shrubbery, it would be an improvement.
I think I would want to know the size, and I'm very familiar with the Cheeseman. I don't know. I mean, that's just the aesthetics. And do we really need this? And
Sure.
I don't know. So that's sort of my thought.
Okay. Anybody else have any
I
questions?
mean, I hear what you're saying, and I sort of think the same thing, like somewhere else, maybe it wouldn't make sense, or just put it, but the fact that it actually is hiding this awful, ugly electrical equipment. I'd like to see what the back looked like as well, because the back you're gonna see from the road, right? You're gonna see that from the tennis court, so we probably would So I'm sort of in favor, but I think I want to see the next design.
The
but,
rear would actually be covered at least 70% by the
electrical
electrical
stuff,
boxes.
And the rear on those scoreboards is pretty much just flat metal.
I just would like to see what.
Yeah, the actual thickness of it is no more than 1.5 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is more of a poster across the chain link than it is a standalone item.
It's a big deal for the kids to have their scores up on the board and lights. I mean, it's a big deal. I'm growing up, so I'm in favor. But I think I just wanted to maybe see. I'm not sure how quickly he needs to approve it, but I would just like, not that I'm against it, but I would just like to see for it to be part of the final design, however that works.
The
But,
impact,
yeah.
maybe.
I'm 100% for it. I just would like to sort of help make sure it's the right look, right size, right feel. So,
Will they have-
but I don't know how quickly you need to act on this thing to get it up by a certain time. So,
Pretty quick. I also know that we would still have to go in front of the building inspector, so perhaps you could share your limitations with them and the final approval could come. I don't know how the process truly works, but we're still not even there yet. We
Right.
need to provide all of the insurance verification for the potential installers, et cetera. So, and they certainly want to know to the centimeter how big this thing is. So I'm not sure, to avoid the need to go on another agenda, does this meet once a month, you folks?
Twice a month.
No.
Twice a month, okay.
We'll meet twice in
I
February.
will,
I'd urge you, since you haven't bought the article yet, and I agree with you, the cost of solar might be exorbitant, but see if you can get it in an LED.
sure.
If you can get in an LED light board, it'll use a lot less electricity and will likely last longer.
Okay, yeah.
There may be an incremental cost increase for LED versus, but that tech has come down in expense.
Sure.
So that might be something you could look at, and that would help assuage the board's concerns about costs to the town for electricity.
Sure.
And, you'd have it with less likelihood of needing to fix it anytime soon.
Yeah, I do think that we're already on the LED track.
Okay.
Okay? But I will look again at solar just to make sure that I'm not, overemphasizing the bump. I'm not even so sure I feel completely comfortable that solar's always, I have no experience with what it's like in Game 7 of a Little League World Series where all of a sudden it wasn't enough sun that day.
It draws from the.
And we don't go to
draws from
game, we don't go to
the grid when
Game
you don't
7.
have
We don't
sun.
go to Game 7. That was a joke.
Is this qualified as a sign? Because we do have limitations with zoning for area of sign.
Good question.
So
I
they
could ask
may need to go to
the,
the ZBA.
yeah, well, and actually, that would be the determination.
we
that
need
would
new
be up to the
signage. We need
determination
new
of the,
signage bylaw in this town for first.
That would be up to the determination by the building
Yeah.
inspector.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether they have to go with the ZBA or not.
So whether they have to go to ZBA or not, it'd be up to him to determine. So in a way, it's a sign, but in a way, it's
Right.
not. It's not
It's a gray area.
it's not a permanently operating sign. It's,
Right.
it is informational, but it is only informational to the game that's being
Right,
played on the
exactly.
field.
It's not
at the time.
commercial.
It's not commercial.
Right.
Right.
There's no advertising on it.
No, but it is gonna be a structure. It is gonna be a structure. It's gonna have footing, it's gonna have steel posts. It's gonna qualify as a structure. It's gonna need a building department sign on, so.
And to what William said about the need, back to the need, it is the most used field because of the lights. And there is a common disconnect from what's actually happening on the field when you don't really know what's going on. I mean, the reality is any sports field would be benefited by some form of scoreboard.
Excuse me, I would bet you $100 every child who's playing on those teams knows exactly what the score is.
I am so with
and
you.
how many outs there are, okay?
It's their parents who
their
are
parents.
watching.
Having had an experience or two with youth soccer at
That's
5 and
right.
6 years old.
Yes.
Even when you weren't keeping score, the kids all knew what the
They
score was.
know.
We don't keep score in our earlier divisions, and the kids are really turned off by that.
They
And
know.
they, so believe me,
My son used to walk off, we had 6 goals, they only had 2. I'm like,
how'd you know that?
They know.
So could you come, or give us some dimensions?
Yes,
I was gonna say, well, I think,
Even the thin,
Yep.
even the
I sure will.
thickness?
I think we're all kind of leaning
Yeah,
towards
like
a
to see.
good outcome
Yeah,
for an
just
approval on it.
shore it up a
is-
little.
As far as just kind of some more details and stuff like that.
Now, do I present those electronically to you prior, or?
Send them to me and I'll include them in the packets.
Oh, okay. So I'll talk to Sean Timmons tomorrow and let him know that, I think he puts us on the agenda with you folks,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so, all right. So LED, solar,
Size,
Dimensional requirement.
dimensional,
screening,
And,
Yep.
yeah, I think
Shrubs.
Screening, I should.
In the backside.
Screening should be part of it.
screening in terms of what?
Either like the kind of shrub I see
Yeah.
here, or something from the backside,
Okay, got it,
or both.
got
I
it.
have a question. What's it mounted on? How's it mounted?
Steel pillars, actual two.
Because what's this in the picture?
Well, you're seeing our attempt to draw shrubbery. Yeah, no. So at the base of, in fact, to scale, this scoreboard is actually a bad representation because of how wide this looks.
Right.
Now, the Cheeseman one is quite smaller. Now, what we might find is that, hey, cover the fence, cover it all. You may think that if we're gonna cover the electrical boxes, let's make sure they're covered. If that's a proponent for this, then, but yeah, this is actually to scale a little wider than the one we got for Cheeseman. Okay?
Yes, I think dimensions would be helpful. I think the rendering tonight's helpful, but the kind of exact dimensions of the different products you're looking at.
It's not my work, I'm better than that. Yeah, so they're just steel pillows you could crawl. Shrubs, yeah. Yep. And Tim will water them.
Great, all right,
All right.
so
So see ya.
Table to a future meeting.
Great,
table this.
Thanks for coming, Lou.
yeah, of course.
Thank you.
You won't be offended if I leave now?
No, not at all.
I make a motion that we table this to a future meeting. We have a little bit more detail on size, shape, and look at this thing.
Second.
Great,
Sure.
thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Couple weeks.
Thanks, Lou.
Coming in, thanks for doing that. All right, so that brings us to the agenda, right?
Does.
It does.
Residential water abatements,
I thought we had a cemetery.
Oh, yeah, no, you voted
We
that.
Oh,
approved
did
it.
we? Okay,
You
I'm
voted that as
sorry.
part of the
Yep.
consent
Oh, that's
agenda.
good.
The only thing you didn't hold.
okay.
At the end.
Residential water abatements, review, discuss, and vote.
So in your packet, you have 3 water abatements, I believe. And if you have any questions on them, they're pretty self-explanatory. They're more toilet issues. But if you have any questions, Tim is here. They're all pretty small comparatively.
The one that kind of stuck out was and there was a lot of emails, and forgive me if I didn't understand all of them, but the one for the first congressional, excuse me.
Yep.
Congressional. It was over a much longer period, correct? Instead of because typically we do an abatement that's over a quarter, right? Right, and this was,
Yeah, Tim Olson, Director of Public Works. It was over a long period of time. They actually didn't know they had a leak. They thought that was their actual consumption. There was some turnover in a director there, and when she inherited the spot, or got the spot, she then started to look into it a little further, and that's when she came to me with, apparently, she thought there was an issue. She hired a plumber. It was an unlit part of the basement, that there was a leak, but it had been for a long period of time.
yeah, 4 years.
Right. They thought that was the norm. They didn't know otherwise, just because of the length of the time it was.
And it's almost 730,000 gallons.
Yep. Yep. And then she came on. She looked at it. She said that this seems higher than normal. Had somebody come in, fix the problem. The reading has then gone back down to normal, which is a considerable decrease.
Yeah.
And she came to me with an abatement request, also understanding that they paid a tremendous amount of money over what they probably should have for a long period of time. She's not asking for any of that in return. She's just asking for
The current abatement.
a current, the last bill,
Okay.
I believe.
I guess that was my misunderstanding, if the abatement request was for the total 4 years, or if it was
No.
just the last quarter.
No.
Okay, then I don't have any more questions about that. I guess I was just confused on the whole.
It was, and they've paid the bill. So the way that this abatement would work is they've fully paid all the bills, the high bills. If you grant the abatement tonight, then it would be actually, that one bill there would be a credit applied
Okay.
to their account.
Yeah, I'm okay with it now.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine
Check your
with it.
toilets, folks.
We do have dye tabs upstairs, so if there's anybody out there that has an issue or suspects an issue, we have free dye tabs
How
with instructions, so.
how many of those did we buy?
Thousands.
I think we bought about 500, 1,000, something like that.
I'll take one,
And
just for
What
fun,
was,
to
what was
start
the
a
cost of
trend.
that?
Just for
Minimum.
We gotta get
Very
your
minimal.
number off, Rosie.
Can we send those
That's
out
fun.
in the water bill
Uh,
once a year or something like that?
I
or
don't-
once-
I'm not sure if we can send them out in the water bill, because
It's
we
just
have our
like a
water
little
bills
pH
printed.
strip kind of thing, right? Or something
It's
you
a-
drop
it's a
it in,
pill.
little dye packet or
It's
something.
a pill, yeah,
Yeah, you
so.
don't always
you
go
put
into
it
in.
houses with
And
What
well, I mean, the other thing is, it'd likely be a waste. You'd send it out and.
Right, and
all
There's,
the way
there's
down
really
to
not
town,
many.
and
I know it seems like I do have a few
Yeah.
that come in, but overall, it's not that many actual issues. I just I don't want to send them out there and then have people not use them.
Right, yeah, it's just a waste, like you said.
But we do have them, I do put them on the water bills, the bottom line,
Oh,
saying that if you
It
do
does say it
suspect.
on the water bill if you.
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm okay with that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with this first one. So we have to make a motion on each one?
Do you wanna do
let's see.
individually, or do you want to look at them as a whole, Mr. Chair?
I think we could do all of them, right?
Let's look at the next one.
How many total are there?
3.
Yeah, there's 3.
The First Congregational Church, 19 Maple Street, and
On 19 Maple Street, there's just a typo on the abatement application, but their bill, I'm assuming their bill was 11/1 on 2019. It says it was 2018, but I'm assuming that's the,
I'll
Yeah.
make sure, yeah.
but,
Yeah, it was a fairly recent bill.
but yeah, no, I'll let me see the other ones. They seem to be within the bylaw.
So I'll accept a motion to approve the 3 residential water abatements as discussed.
I make a motion to accept the 3 water abatements as discussed.
All right.
Second.
Second.
Second, all right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Tim, I had a question for you. There was, and I missed the meeting, so I apologize, but it was already talked about, but you came before us for water abatement a few months ago, and there were 2 months they were looking for an abatement on. We approved 1, and sort of gave you some homework.
you approved the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I missed it,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah,
yeah.
you approved it.
Ah, a leave for me, he's sneaking run right by me. I see how that works, okay.
He did his homework. It was good. We checked it.
Okay.
All right, next up, town meeting vote counters, discuss and vote. The clickers.
The clickers, yes. So you gave me some homework. So I was looking at, so summary as of the town purchasing 400 clickers in order to take the town meeting to save sort of time, get a better count, better process, better tracking, better archival information, as well as people can vote without people knowing what they're voting, because you don't have to raise your card. You basically just click. So on some votes, you may get a more honest vote if people can just vote sort of anonymously. So the 2 homework assignments you gave me were sort of what's the yearly fee. So I talked to Turning Technologies. They have an $800 yearly fee recurring every year. And that basically does it's free training, free support, and upgrades, any software upgrades. So there's no limit to the support, so you can call or email as many times as you need over the course of the year. They won't come out per se, but you can call and sort of tech support.
They won't come out?
Not for the $800. Yeah, I mean, he's in town often, but it's not part of that. I mean,
So he wouldn't, nobody would come to the town meeting?
So different things. So, but for the yearly thing, for the $800 you're paying for the software upgrade, tech support, but they're not located in Massachusetts, so they're not here when you need them to be here. He's out here frequently. Actually, he says he's going to be here for the Massachusetts
Clerks Convention.
Clerks Convention. I'm not sure is our clerk, interim clerk, going to that.
And ask her if she is, but she's interim.
He'll be here for that, having a
Right.
booth or table or presentation,
They're-
however that works.
As part of the support, they're there on the phone. They're
Right,
just not here.
But then the second part, you asked me to look at renting for the first town meeting. So I'd reached out to Manchester but their town meeting is too close to ours, so she felt uncomfortable with sort of what would happen if we didn't get them back, or there was an issue. But then she said, they will give them to you. So then I called Greg back, and he says, oh yeah, we will, for the first meeting, we come out, I come out with it, we support it, we do the whole thing for free, no cost.
Perfect. Can't beat that, and.
I gave him the date. He said he may not be available that date, but he would send someone from his company. They would do it no matter what. So yeah, that was a good piece of information.
And this is the one that's most.
This is the one that's most used in
most
Massachusetts,
used,
based on
okay.
my research that I did.
I see no downside to that.
The other two things he mentioned that we hadn't really talked about before is that when you buy, so I talked to the woman from Manchester, I'm forgetting her name right now, but Christine. But she said they actually bought 1,000 of these because their high school has about 1,000 people in it. And so what they did is when you buy the software, you buy the license. So that you don't necessarily need the clickers. You can download it on your iPad, you can download it on a phone. So if you have things in the school district where you want to use it to sort of take a survey, take a test, you can use this thing over and over again. So it doesn't just need to be used at town meeting. If town meeting wants to use it and keep the clickers, and the town clerk keeps the clickers, that's fine. But once the town owns this platform and the licenses, you can use it for any meeting you want and any device you want. So that's why Manchester made the investment of buying 1,000, because they thought maybe they could use them within the school district if anything came up. So so you sort of get that added value to it.
Sort of like the program in the, I don't know, what was it, the Civic Bee last year, the kids, and the kids all know how to use those.
Right.
They're like,
Right, you can download an app on your phone, it's free.
right, they had iPads. and
You can
they
download
were-
your
yeah.
iPad, it's free to download it, and then the teacher can use it as a teaching tool.
Yeah.
And as long as you don't go over 1,000 licenses at one time, you can do whatever you want with it. The woman from Manchester said it was pretty simple to use. She got up and running pretty quickly. It's a PowerPoint-based software, so it's pretty easy to use if you know PowerPoint. She was questioning because we don't have a full-time IT support, so the first meeting we'd actually have them come, but then after that, we'd have to train somebody to use it.
Bill, are they fragile?
These things, no, they're pretty robust.
Oh, good.
I mean, we'll get to see them,
Yep.
but based on what he talked to me about, they're pretty robust. There's not much to them. They're
Yeah, I can
very
imagine
thin,
it's
like a
Yeah.
little calculator almost, they look like. And the other thing she said was that like even they get like a high school student to volunteer and come to town meeting and just be there for support, because she says it's very easy to use, but you might want to have some help on it.
Like a kid, yeah.
So I'll get a high school kid who might want to volunteer his time on a Saturday. So yeah, so I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to say, hey, let's have them come to the April meeting and just give us a free demo. So
Yeah.
I like it, I like it.
What's the lead time once you place an order?
I didn't even ask them that, but because I figured we'd have the time, because once you had the April meeting, we got 6 months until the next one. So, but I can ask them that.
I make a motion that we approve Bill to, excuse me, I'm looking for.
Engage Turning Technologies for a free demo for,
For our
Exactly.
town,
I mean,
with personnel,
with with representation on site.
Second.
Second. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thanks very much,
Good
Bill.
work, Bill.
Bill, if you just put me in touch, you and I will.
Yeah,
work it
great,
out,
yeah.
We'll make sure it all gets done.
And you
Thank
could
you.
get some high school.
Okay,
people
back to
doing
water.
Yeah, right.
Water rates and seasonal water usage.
We have Tim here tonight to help walk you through, and in your packets, you have a spreadsheet that is not yet been disseminated publicly. This is for discussion purposes, give you some options and stuff tonight. This is because, as we've mentioned in the past, the last 2 years, we've been really kind of close to, or actually in deficit as far as what we projected our operating expenses and operating income. The retained earnings that have been built up over the first few years with the increased water rate 5 years ago, they started to dwindle. We do still have some in retained earnings. We are projecting a deficit in the current year operating-wise. We've been suggesting to you that it's time for a look at the rates, and in discussions with both your board and with the FinCom, one of the ideas that was looked at was that since a lot of the expense in our water department has to do with the debt service on some of these projects we've been doing the last several years, that possibly one way to do this would be to share the burden between the infrastructure fee, or what some people refer to as the water meter fee. It's not a water meter fee, it's an infrastructure fee, but the infrastructure fee and the rate. So at my request, Tim has come up with 4 options here that look at a variety of increases to the infrastructure fee, some that have a complementary increase to the rate as well. One is just a larger infrastructure fee increase, and one is just a larger rate fee increase. And so you have 4 different things to look at. And as part of this discussion, I think we were also, it was supposed to be listed here as also to talk about the seasonal water usage. Oh, it is, seasonal water usage at the Asbury Grove. So he can answer your questions. He has an idea about kind of how to help attack that problem for the Grove. So if you have questions of Tim, or you want him to walk you through the 4 options, whatever you like, he's here to help.
If you could kind of give us an overview of these, Tim, just because I'm looking at them and
Yep,
so the folks
sure.
at home just don't see me staring at it, maybe you can talk about it and they can understand it a little bit.
So what like Joe said, I put together a couple options, a couple different scenarios for you guys to look at the impacts. What I typically, it's a tiered rate, obviously 5 tiers. The way I calculated these was using our Munis program, our water billing software. Was able to change up rates, change up infrastructure fees, and what that did is it provided a new water commitment, so a quarterly revenue. And that's what the first 4 columns are, or 4 rows are in each column. It's a projected commitment, quarterly commitment, given the parameters that I put in the system. So option 1, were the 4 quarterly commitments, the revenue generated using increasing the infrastructure fee to 80, as well as a 20% increase to the rates. What that does is, what I was trying to do was minimize the retained earnings use, and also cover the debt service, like Joe mentioned. We have, I think, the early talks with the FinCom, as well as with the town manager and finance director. We were trying to come up with a scenario that we could cover the debt service with the infrastructure fee alone, because that's more, attributed to the amount of capital projects that we've done in the past. And then the rate would be trying to cover the operating expenses in the water enterprise. So that's what option 1 is. You see that the retained earnings is very minimal with that scenario. I kind of summarized them down on the bottom of kind of how I came up with those and what the overall impact would be. Option 2, we do not have a rate increase, but we increase the infrastructure fee up to $95. That is it requires slightly more retained earnings, but no rate increase. Option 3, just up a little bit on the infrastructure. What I was trying to do was negate the retained earnings as much as possible, trying to find an idea of where we needed to be. That actually, by a $100 infrastructure fee, that actually creates a surplus of around $50,000. So that's a little over what I was trying to hit the 0 mark. And then the option 4, same infrastructure fee with a larger rate increase of 35%. That last rate increase in 2015 was about 40%. This is a 35% that gets us fairly close to not using any of the retained earnings, about $8,100. So again, these are numbers generated from Munis based on commitments. We tried to get 95% commitments collected. So I factored that all in, working with the finance director. Some other, obviously, some other revenue sources yet to be determined, but I did put in some estimates as she instructed me to do so. So this is kind of where we're at. That is the permanent wages. I highlighted two rows in the expenses that can change or maybe could fluctuate. That's the operating capital, or excuse me, in the indirect costs, as well as the permanent wages. They kind of go hand in hand with rate increases and things like that. So that's why those 2 columns are in red, because they are changing. That was the current figures that I got a few days ago.
keep in mind, the retained earnings for an enterprise fund is very similar to free cash.
Right.
To be financially healthy, you'd like to have some percent.
You'd like to have some.
You'd
Yeah,
like to
so-
have-
Use it up.
you'd like to have 5 to 10% of
Yeah, so
operating,
typically-
your operating in the retained earnings to cover unforeseen events, so.
It's typical or common practice to look at the rates every year. You know, you get 3 commitments in, you see how you're doing, and you adjust the rate accordingly. I know we've gone a long period of time with no rate increase since 2015. The other community I came from, we would look at it yearly, make the adjustments necessary to cover the expenses. I think what we have to understand is that we have to be careful if this is going to be, if we're going to go and commit to looking at it annually, this could be a good idea.
Right.
I think if we're looking at having these be another 5 years out, we need to rethink, and we need to be a little bit more careful with what we're proposing and deciding
Yeah.
to change to. So
I would like to see the FinCom analyze this data and give us some recommendations before we get too deep into the weeds, because that's where their expertise is, and that could really help us.
Did our financial director, Marissa, weigh in on any of these options as far as one that she thought would be better? And kind of gonna back up a little bit, when you were talking about we've been 5 years kind of stalled on these rates, and now we're looking at some type of increase or change in the structure. My thought would be every year we review and we increase or do what we need to do with the rates, instead of another 5-year stall and then a big jump again for our residents.
right.
I mean, that's why we put the stall on it for the 5 years that we did, because it was a 40% increase, and that was a
huge
lot for our
increase.
residents. And really, our water rates were really low for all the surrounding communities. So I'd like to think that we're getting close to the average for all the communities around us, or at least somewhere in that range. So if we kind of keep at it, it won't be
Right.
such a big jump if we wait again. I don't want to wait again. I want to kind of review it every year and keep on top of
So I
it.
think Marissa would agree with you, I think, in that, and I agree with you. We'd be recommending that going forward. I understand that when the Board of Selectmen 5 years ago made that change, they pledged to hold the rates for a period of 5 years. And you kept that promise, and that's great. Going forward, we've kind of evened out a little, actually taken a little dip.
Right.
I know Marissa's concern is that we're getting to the point where we're annually having to use some retained earnings to balance the operating budget.
Right.
That's not really good practice. So the retained earnings that had built up, which was good and quite
Right.
healthy for us from a financial health perspective, has started to dwindle a little.
Right.
She's anticipating having to use some this year. You just sent out another billing, correct?
We did.
Yeah.
So you have, I would suggest potentially that you could have a couple weeks to do as Darcy said, get some input from FinCom, and then still have time to make any adjustment
Make
in
the
time for the
change.
final quarter billing, so that we can see if that can have an effect. I know Marissa is in favor of having you review the rates and make some kind of an adjustment.
Yeah.
The idea would be to at least get to the point where we're not having to use
Retained earnings.
retained earnings every year. Because we will run out of retained earnings, and then you'll be back at the space of needing to put.
Right.
And if I could just offer an anecdotal piece of evidence. You all know I came from Winthrop. Winthrop had a very large revolving fund for water and sewer related to its MWRA costs. It was annually reviewed by DOR, and the last year I was there, DOR told us to raise the rate.
Right.
Because the retained earnings had dwindled to the point where they were no longer comfortable with it. So we don't want to get to the point where DOR or our bond rating agencies are
Right,
looking
they're
at
gonna
that
look
number
at
and
it, yeah.
saying, hey, this
Agreed.
doesn't look right.
So Tim, how much more are we trying to generate per year? Because you're
Well-
you're factoring in the sort of, it's hard to do the math because you're factoring in
Right.
the
And plus,
the existing infrastructure fee. So
Right,
what-
so right now, if you just look at the infrastructure fee, it's $60 a quarter.
okay,
We get approximately $150,000 for just the infrastructure fee
Per quarter.
per quarter.
so you're trying to generate another 400,000.
Well, we're trying to cover the debt service, which is just under 800,000, so.
But if you go from 60 to 100, you're increasing it by $40 a quarter.
I think $80 infrastructure fee, I think the $80 mark was pretty close to 800,000.
Okay.
If
But
I
you've already
remember.
collecting 60 of that, though, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to figure out how much more you're trying to,
Oh, you're saying like $20 more from
20
the 60?
Yeah, so 20 times
yeah,
2,500
yeah,
per quarter.
times 4, right?
And plus, I think
That's
our revenue from the water is down a little bit because we've had the kind of conservation with the
Right.
water plant and stuff like that, right? And
Yeah, a
it's
few
probably
years
been
ago,
little bit-
a couple of years ago, it's, I think, since I've been here, I mean, I think since 2015, when the new rates were set, we've done a tremendous amount of work in the water. You know, replacing water mains, the water plant upgrade. You know, Hamilton's committed to a lot of water upgrades. And I think that $60 fee, as well as the tiered structure, you know, when you're handling that amount of capital projects, which has been successful, we've came a long way in a short period of time. I just think now we're starting to see dipping into that retained earnings because they were large projects. And, you know, it's an aging infrastructure. Well, I don't think we'll never be done. So we have some other projects that we've talked about, and Joe and I have discussed in the long-term, short-term scenario. And
Because I would say probably our water infrastructure has been our highest capital cost for the town.
absolutely.
Right, there's a couple things going on. One is that, and two is if the more efficient we become and the more leaks we fix, the higher our water rate is.
Right.
Because it costs, there's a fixed amount to run our plant, so.
And that part of, to
Right.
be honest with you, is part of the reason the discussion of
right.
adjusting the infrastructure fee came up.
Right.
Because
'Cause the rates might
more you
not.
raise the rate, the more people will resist the use to water.
Right.
And then that just drives down our earnings because
Right,
now.
it's a catch-22.
Right.
And that does kind of work into a little bit of a spiral,
Right.
that, you
But-
know,
but I think-
you're
but-
all constantly trying to chase
I think at the
that.
same time, you gotta reward people who are efficient and not let the people who aren't efficient. So I think I would be more in favor of a combination. I think there's a set, whether you want water or not, there's a set fee to get water to your house, but then once you use it, you gotta pay. So I'm in favor of sort of a combination. I think the people who are more efficient in their water shouldn't pay the full amount. But I think I'm sort of more in favor of sort of infrastructure a little bit, use fee a little bit, sort of, I don't know what that percentage is, but I think that makes more sense.
I think
to-
Selectwoman Dale has recommended maybe
Yeah.
sending it. Do you want to have a motion to send it to the FinCom and ask for the recommendation? And,
I'm going to make a motion that we send it to FinCom for their recommendation.
Second.
All right, any further
I
discussion?
want to put a time on it, though, because I think we need to.
Oh, they're aware.
Yeah.
They're aware.
Yeah.
The chair is very aware.
Yeah, I met with them.
But when do you want to have this resolved by in order to maximize when's the next bill going out?
February? No,
No.
May.
May.
So- Sorry,
May.
I'm
Just
I'm
count.
3 months, I'm 3 months
Yeah,
behind, so.
so yeah, to resolve within the next
yeah,
3
so-
months. Yeah.
Yeah, May.
I would just like to throw in the idea that I agree with your analysis, Bill. I think I agree with that, but I also think I have another possibility of just increasing the infrastructure so that it's budgeted and it's a known entity and people can plan for it. So I
Right, that's kind of a set cost, you know,
Yeah.
if it's $100 a quarter, you know you have that
Right,
$100 a quarter.
right.
I kind of agree with that a little bit, but I do think the rates need to go up a bit. I mean, I wouldn't recommend 30 or 40% like we did 5 years ago, but we'll see
But
what,
that was
we'll
a
see what
shock.
FinCom's analysis.
That was a real,
Yeah.
that was a real shock 5 years ago. I'm still reeling from it. I mean, my water bill quadrupled, and I understand our water rate was very inexpensive before, but to sort of be a little bit in, not expecting such an enormous increase. But anyhow, that's just my thought.
Great, all right.
We have a motion, right? So-
Yes,
And
and
it's
any,
been
if it's been seconded, we've further discussed it. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent,
And
great.
can we, before we wrap up the conversation, because I see Mr. Tilly here tonight,
Yeah.
talk about the Grove and other entities such as Baton Rouge and stuff like that with their,
The intention to have them combined here and Tim being here, so yes.
so. I see the email here about kind of structure fee and specifically to the Grove, separate meter for the, master meter for the pool, one for the rest of the residences, and which will split between whatever, 90, 95 residences for that water rate.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do, I think a few meetings ago I think was I came to you first go around with the rates. We have four master meters in town. I just was trying to come up with a scenario that, as best we can, they're all different. They're all different situations, but as best we can, treat them as similar as possible. You know, we have Patton Ridge. We have adjusted their account this past billing. You know, they still have the master meter. We were able to then take their usage and divide it by 12, apply the rate.
Was there, with irrigation up there, was there gonna be a separate?
So that's going to be, once the irrigation system comes on, we're working on that to separate that. So the domestic use at this time was divided by 12. We applied the tier rate system to that. Each unit was assessed the $60 infrastructure fee, and then we billed that to the association, but we billed out each individual unit kind of separately. And then we added it up for one bill. So that's similar to how we do the housing authority downtown.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking at trying to do for the Grove. The Grove is a little different because we have the pool, similar to irrigation.
Right.
You know, it's a luxury. I would like to put on or have them put on a separate meter or somehow work together with that. You know, take the difference. The pool would be the higher rate, the full rate structure. The difference in the 2 meters would be what is the domestic use.
Right.
Then divide that by the units, probably work with the Grove to make sure the units are correct. I think it was a 94 or 95 units, something like that. Obviously, then tier the rate accordingly, add in the infrastructure fee, and bill them one bill, similar to what we're doing with Patton Ridge as well as the Housing Authority.
And then Gordon was another one.
So the Gordon, yeah, they haven't came to me yet. Gordon is another unique circumstance just because it's a dorm, kind of a dorm facility. They have a master meter for each building. We do not really know how many units are in there. So what we do is we apply the full tier, but one infrastructure fee. So they pay the full tier.
Right.
They've been paying, no issues. They haven't came to me with any changes or requests for changes. So that's how we treat them.
The one thing that is different from them too is that it's, in this case, in the cases with Patton Ridge and what a change to the Asbury Grove and the housing, each individual resident or resident user is, you know, being asked to pay their portion. At the Grove, at
Gordon,
Gordon
it's
Conwell,
different, right.
it's the university, it's the seminary rather, that they're the
Right.
customer. They take on that responsibility when they have the dorms.
Right.
And
I would think that we would want, because it's just such a different situation with them, we should think about a master meter fee, infrastructure fee that's separate from the other entities that we're kind of working in specialty with.
Right, right.
Just because $60 fee for them is, I mean.
Yeah, and that's why they would, at this time, stay at
They pay
the higher
rate, though.
tier.
That's the risk
They're paying a higher rate.
That's a
Right,
higher rate.
right.
That's the
So
issue.
keep in mind, they're responsible for everything after the meter.
Right.
So we're only responsible up to the meter, and that's why,
Right.
Right.
in a way, that makes sense for them.
Yeah,
There's vagaries and
right,
and
there's.
little things in
A
all
lot
of
of
it.
different, but
But they're the only ones that haven't come looking for some kind of a correction, so there's been a little further down on the priority list.
so 3 out of the 4 would be
Treated the same.
treated the same, except for the small irrigation or
Right.
pool. I believe the Housing Authority doesn't have either. So
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if anybody has any
Does the-
comments from,
Ridge or the
Really?
Grove have anything they want to add? That sound fair
Yeah.
to both of you guys so
I-
far?
The new infrastructure fee, that kind of changes our ideas.
Right.
Because that's a big move.
Yeah.
So I had a meeting today. This is the second meeting I had, and they talked about some things that were important to them. So the Asbury Grove community has yet another individual situation that makes them even more unique than someplace else in town. And that is for the seasonal cottages, the 94 seasonal cottages, the water is shut down entirely for 2 quarters. So even if they wanted to have water, they couldn't because the Grove shuts down their water. And I know that we spoke about this briefly today, Tim, but their request is that they not have to pay the infrastructure charge, the water delivery charge for two billing cycles from November 1st to April 15th, thereabouts. And because they don't have the access to water. Now, the other side of it, we do provide water up to the meter, but on the other side, they are not able to get it because their water is shut down.
They turn it off. They
Yeah,
have
it's
the
their
option.
choice, right?
That's their
Yeah,
choice to turn
that's
it
my
off.
issue, with it, it's their choice.
I mean, I think it's definitely something worth talking about, but at the same time, where any customer we have in town could say, well, I go away for the entire,
Right, I go to
winter.
Florida for
I go
the
to Florida for the winter.
Right.
Right.
I turn off my water at my meter, why can't you just not charge me the
Right.
infrastructure fee?
Well,
You know, the infrastructure fee is for us to be able to have the resources to be able to provide the infrastructure to
It's a
get
fi-
water.
it's a fixed cost, right,
Right.
for us to run the
It's
plant.
fixed
no matter-
cost, and
yeah.
it is,
Right.
and it is what it is, and, so,
And the-
they,
and
that
the
they
year-
choose not to use the water during that period is,
well,
it
it's not
saves them money on the
them.
rate. but-
It's not them. It falls upon the residents to pay that when they're not there. They don't have access to the water. And secondly, they're not designed as year-round residences. So it's just something I would like for us to consider in fairness, because even if they wanted to have water, the residents cannot have water. And then the other thing that we spoke about today, they were requesting, as well as the pool being on a separate meter, there are 5 other buildings in the Grove that are that belong to the Grove. They don't belong to the residents, seasonal or full-time residents, and they were wondering if those 5 other buildings could be on a separate meter. As well, so that when you have the entire water use and deduct the pool and these 5 Grove-owned administrative buildings, that what's left to divide between the 94 cottages is truly and only their water use.
Is that, you can,
We'd like to put
right, is that all,
a meter on each one of the dorms.
Okay.
And the 2 other buildings in that same area, and a meter on the pool. And you can just electronically do, just like you do in my house, check that usage.
right,
And then those 6 buildings would be brought together, they'd each be charged a water rate according to what their rate is on, naturally, like my house would be. And then you take the total, which is not a lot, this is not a lot of work, I don't believe. Just take the total of that water usage and divide, and subtract it from the total of that water main, that
right,
section.
right.
And
So
then
is,
divide that by the 94 or how many buildings that we have.
I don't mind working with the Grove to look at that. I just want to make sure that there's room for meters, that the buildings are, there's adequate space for them to get a meter installed.
Okay.
It's something we can always take a look at. I think if that's the case, I think I'm willing to work with whatever their requests are, because I understand the difference between domestic use as well as luxury, if you want to call it that, pool use,
Right.
recreational use, as well as admin, business use, if you want to call it that. So yeah, no, I'm fine to look at that and see if we can work something out there.
And then, I don't know what the feeling is about, I'm very sympathetic to not being charged that $60 infrastructure charge.
Our infrastructure exists 12 months a year, 365 days a year. We gotta pay for it, so it's,
Well, and the full-timers do, the people
No,
who
but I
live
mean, that
there
means-
I guess that's
full-time.
what I want to speak to. With all due respect, if you went on,
Introduce yourself.
I'm Patty Miller. I live in Asbury Grove. I'm a full-time resident, and I get billed by the water department to me at my address, and I pay my bill quarterly. The seasonal section, I live there all year round. The seasonal section do not live there all year round. They can't. They have to leave it by November the 1st, and they come back in the spring when the water gets turned back on, which is generally around the 15th, depending upon the weather and so forth. So if I were to go away for 3 months, or 4 months, or 5 months, because it was my choice for the winter and I live year-round, I would not expect to be excused from my infrastructure fee because I have a year-round home. The seasonal section is seasonal. It means they are there from April to November 1st, and then
Somebody left
it's,
the cheese.
their water is shut off. You can't even, there's chains up, you can't go there. So I think in all fairness, and then if the infrastructure fee is going to go up, that's a whole nother discussion that I can come back and talk to you about, because of, we're paying full infrastructure fees, but yet we don't get any help with our pipes under our roads, because it's like an extended driveway or so forth. But that's another discussion, and I'll come forward again for that. But I think it really should be considered for the infrastructure fee for 2 months to be eliminated in the seasonal section of Asbury Grove, because they are not living there, and they're not allowed to, they can't.
Residences are seasonal up there?
There are 94
How many?
cottages.
94, I don't know.
Somewhat, we could.
Yeah, I don't think that's
That's the
exact.
seasonal.
That's the seasonal. And you can't live there, the water is shut down, every single cottage has, the cottage owner has prepared the lines so that they don't freeze. So I think that's something that should really be considered.
Seems
I mean,
like
we were trying to make a compromise by
Pardon me?
We've got an agreement with the town, we'll only have 62 year-round dwellings. We cannot make the season year-round.
And it would be very costly to make the seasonal year-round anyway, because of the water lines are so close to the surface.
But
They're
the
not
town trying to
buried.
make a compromise by allowing you to divide it up to individual meters, and now you sort of trying to get both. Either it's 1 meter or it's 94 meters. So it's hard to sort of try and do. Tim, what was their rate before we agreed to sort of split it up amongst? If they had to pay the larger rate
They're
for,
paying the highest rate.
they're paying the highest rate, right?
For residential.
I thought we've already lowered that by allowing them to divide it up.
No, not yet. That's in the works.
No, but I guess allowing it to be divided up, it's a residential neighborhood. It's a neighborhood in Hamilton, and there are residents back there, there are families back there. So it makes sense to have the meters on the corporate buildings and the pool. That makes sense. The other are cottages with families and retired people and individuals living there. So it doesn't make sense to charge them like we've already given them the lower rate. I think it's just being fair and equitable that you've got a unique community of 160 years and brings a lot of history to the town of Hamilton. You've got a year-round residents that are paying quarterly infrastructure fees and water bills. We pay the full tax rate, and then we have this unique situation in the back that is seasonal. It's shut down. You can't live there. The water is turned off. There's no residents. Why should those people be paying quarterly infrastructure fees if they're not using their home, if their home can't be used?
Because unfortunately, infrastructure is not for use. It's to support a water system that exists 365 days a year.
I understand that.
So we can divide that. We could bill you twice a year instead of 4 times a year. But unfortunately, it's the same cost per house to have water to your house. So it's like now it bears the burden. That's the problem with it. It's a fixed fee. It's not that it's based on use. It's fixed. This community has a fixed fee to support water to the town, and so you divide it up by who's using it, or you divide it by use. We decided to have then you have to change it for everybody. Like you said, if somebody goes away
No,
for.
because this is a unique situation.
I get it, but everybody's got a unique situation. I mean, it's hard. That's why it's hard. You can't do.
Nobody living in the houses.
I know, but
There's
it's
no
not.
water
It wasn't
being
the town's. It's not
serviced
the
to
town's
it,
decision.
so-
Something FinCom might be able to shed some light on too?
I mean, ultimately, it's going to be the board's decision anyway. I think the fact is, though, if the board decides to do that, there will be a shift from, for that fixed cost to the other users.
Right.
So whatever the amount of money that you would raise in the infrastructure fee from those
Right.
94 units will be borne by the rest of the users in the system throughout the
Right.
town.
Right.
That's the only way to do it.
So if we cut out the,
So if you cut out those 94 users, if you know, I mean, that's where.
The money has to come, the money doesn't go away, it has to come from somewhere.
Right, you're shifting it
Shifting it to everybody else.
to everybody else.
What if we considered a half discount? I mean, just looking at their very unique situation, and it's true, and I understand you're not going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but these people have a legitimate situation.
Tim, I have a question for you, sorry. So, I mean, maybe you could do an exercise for us, but currently right now, what is each, so currently right now they're paying on the higher rate, or did you adjust their bill yet?
I haven't addressed their bill yet.
So can you do an
I
exercise?
mean, it's off right now, so there is no water usage through
Right.
that meter.
If you recall, when you voted to have us move forward with negotiating something with the Ridge, we did it because they're using it now.
Right.
The pool and the seasonal cottages
Right.
were recognized as an issue, but because there's nobody there right now. it's not
right, because
really
right now,
affecting
like
them.
Mr.
Any
Tilly and the rest
change
of the.
you're gonna make
you're right.
won't affect them until the residents are back in.
Right, because year-round residents,
Gotcha.
are just paying like everybody else.
Right.
It's the seasonal residents.
Right, have meters, right?
Right, year-round has their own meters.
So you do a quick math exercise for us so we can understand what they're asking for.
What the
It's hard,
difference
yeah,
is.
what the difference is.
Well,
Maybe it's not that much, and
120
but-
times 94, right? 1660 is 120 times 94.
no, but based at the lower rate versus the high rate.
So I know, take a
I
few
think you'd be-
bills and
I'd
then
be
see what the
interested,
difference is.
You'd be taking away.
Taking well,
higher rate.
higher rate,
So,
yeah.
Right,
Right
would it,
now,
would
we're
it
covering
balance
that
out?
cost.
Would it
Balance
net
out.
zero, or would
Having
it?
a
Right.
higher use rate.
Right, but
I'll
that's
take it.
also, that's
What I-
also a fairness factor. I mean, you're not taking away their higher rate, you're giving them a fairer rate, which is something
That, we thought that was a good compromise, and now we're asking for a second compromise. So I just want to see what the dollar
So
impact
you want me
is.
to look at past bills, past, like, summer
I just-
bill?
I think what you're asking is if they're at the highest rate, which is the $14 rate.
Right, and we say, okay,
You do the individual to the season.
Right, right, what the difference
They go
is.
down to, like, the average
Right.
use is what, 10 or 15,000?
Right.
And so they're in the 574 rate,
Yep,
whatever that money is versus the $14 rate, and then with the
Infrastructure fees.
infrastructure fees.
yeah.
how
So
that-
that's what I was gonna say, I'll take a couple past
Yeah, we'll
bills
just look
and
at
just
it.
break it out
Yeah,
for how we currently bill versus the alternative.
right.
Right.
And see what that difference is. And that would help us make a more
yeah,
educated decision.
yeah,
on-
be more informed. I understand the dilemma, but it's just hard to keep sort of carving up the rules for everybody that comes in.
And then the next question is, we're installing a couple meters at the Ridge, 5+ meters maybe in the Grove. What's the average meter cost?
I think they're paying for the
Installation, all that.
cost.
Who's the burden on with the installation?
I think you had voted
remember
last
what we
time to
decided.
allow Tim and I to negotiate and work it out. We're gonna give them the meters, and the installation of the meters is gonna be at their cost. So
Okay.
We're trying to work out what that looks like, both with the Ridge, and then we will do the same thing
All
with
right.
the Grove.
Yeah, I couldn't remember where we left it.
But the Ridge, I don't think we're installing any meters, correct? Maybe one for the irrigation?
The idea was afterwards, work with the town manager and myself would work with Pat and Ridge for the best scenario to either individually install the meters in the homes, or
Okay,
an
gotcha.
alternative
That might come later.
solution.
Okay.
Right now, we're just dividing it because that was something easy and I knew the irrigation system wasn't on.
Right.
So-
Our hiccup is, what Tim's doing right now in the winter when the irrigation system isn't being, is perfectly fine and fair
Right,
to the
with the minute.
homeowners. But once the irrigation system gets
Right.
turned on, then having that on is gonna tick them into a higher usage plan. So how do we separate that out?
Right.
So we're still talking to the Ridge about how to make that happen before spring, don't worry.
Brad Tilly again.
Brad.
Eric, our facilities manager, informed me that right now we're paying $5,700 a quarter for water, just water. And at $60 per quarter times, let's say 90 cottages, that's $5,400. So they're pretty much equal
Right,
as it is right now. So, just so you know.
yeah, it's,
I
yeah.
kind of figured it was net zero.
Yeah, it's on that zero, so it's kind of strange, right?
Okay,
Doesn't really help
so
them out.
what would we like to do with this?
Well,
All right, so,
I think you voted to send the
We
water
voted
rate
to-
thing to FinCom already, and
Right.
then do you want to, a similar vote to the last time, authorize Tim and I to work with the Grove to
Yeah.
kind of get them to
Yeah, yeah, because I think that's the thing. I think we agreed to lower their water bill, and if by now charging 60 or $100 per meter 4 times a
Undoing what
year,
you agreed to
and we just undid what we agreed to. So that's why I was talking about the math, because the math makes it level. Then I sort of go back when I said, then there's really no savings for them because we've just created sort of a hidden fee. So I think you need to go back and look at the math, look at the bills.
I think we understand your intent. We'll
Yeah.
we'll come and let you know what we're.
Yeah, so if there's a net zero discount, we've done nothing for them, so I agree. I'll go back when I say we should probably review the numbers and make sure it makes sense, because that was, the agreement was we were trying to give them a
Right.
break underwater, not,
Give them $100.
not
we
charge
give
them a
break
different
and
way.
then we charge them on the other end, and it's $100.
Yeah, then we did nothing.
We did
So I
nothing,
agree, we need
yeah.
to, we need to look at the numbers, Tim, and go back and look at it.
Patty Miller. I just know that you'll be fair and equitable. And I guess my last comment would be, what's the timeline? This has been going on for a year and a half, and it's time to make a decision. And I know, I respect you're all busy, and this takes time. However, I think there needs to be a timeline and a plan that is delineated and written down so that all parties can see it, and an implementation date, because it can't go on another year and a half.
And I think our kind of hard stop is our next water billing cycle.
Right. Well, can I comment on that? So it all kind of depends. I mean, if we're going, depending on how we treat this bill, or the revised bills, or the future bills, I mean, there's a little bit of infrastructure that needs to happen. Installations, the pool, I'm not sure exactly, we'd have to look at where the locations are, where they're appropriate. I mean,
Right, it's not just changing the billing.
it's just not changing the billing, it's changing infrastructure, which there is a cost to it. There's a cost to the town to make sure we have the meters, and there's a cost probably to the Grove to install the meters, depending on what we work out. So I mean, we'll try to work on it as soon as we can. Patton Ridge was something we could do fairly quickly. We may be able to look at that until the pool comes on, until the summer usage. But that's kind of what the meter is for. So it's one of those things, you kind of have to have it all set
Right.
prior to the summer with the Asbury Grove side. So we'll see what we can do, but
Would by the May billing cycle, would that be?
they'll have it on by then. They usually turn it on April, right? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that would
Does that sound like
be,
a reasonable, does that give you enough time to
it's
really
not,
everything?
it's not me. That's what I'm saying. We will supply the meters, similar to what we've talked to the Patton Ridge about. We'll supply the meters,
It's them
Right.
figuring out installation and.
figuring out the installation, and making sure the accounts upstairs, that's internal here. So we can work on that. I'll work with the water administration.
January, February,
assistants.
March, April, so that's about 3 months. And so would you be able to get the meters installed?
So let me just understand your proposal, so just in case so I can think about it. So your proposal is that you're okay with the individual dividing it up however many times, and you just pay infrastructure fee twice a year? And that you're okay with, you've looked at the math, and that math makes sense to you?
If you could pay infrastructure twice a year.
Yeah.
And divide what's left of the usage among the summer residents, divided by 90 or 94, we'd be happy.
You've looked at the math, and that makes sense to you? You're still, you're saving money?
Those two things, we'd be happy.
Okay.
Let's have FinCom review that,
Okay. All right.
get back to us.
Fair enough. Thank you for presenting your case. Makes sense.
Thank you for your time.
We'll be tough.
But I didn't realize that we weren't saving any money. You're not saving any money.
Right.
Heading to.
We reduce one and raise another.
If we do this one raise the other, then you're back to square zero. So what do we do? Because it's so many.
Makes it seem like we're
Yeah,
doing it on purpose.
exactly.
You divide,
Not a
you
shelter.
multiply
We're not doing it on
90
purpose.
by 60
Not a
times
shelter.
4.
Well, 60 times.
I do too.
Well, no, but right now it's 60 times 4.
Yeah.
90 times
And
60
they are
times,
such a unique,
it's $21,000.
they are such a
Okay.
unique entity.
No, it is, but it's just hard to, I always have a hard time dividing up.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
But
Thanks,
Thank you,
Tim.
Tim.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, next up is Regional Inspectional Services Intermunicipal Agreement, review and vote on amended agreement.
Okay, you don't have anything in your packets because there's been a slight change since the last meeting. So if you'll recall at the last meeting, I informed you that that morning, we became aware that a vote needed to happen by the 15th, and we did not have time to post and advertise for that vote. As soon as I became aware of it, I made our counterparts in Wenham aware of it. And we had thought that what would be needed would be a whole new agreement. But on advice of council since then, the Wenham Board of Selectmen voted at its last meeting to continue the agreement and give us the same leeway to vote to continue the agreement as it is, with the second part of that being that they would seek an amendment so that we don't get ourselves into this trouble next year. So
Yeah.
they're gonna ask, they're gonna ask KP Law to draft an amendment for the contract that we'd adopt at a future meeting that would allow this to,
A grace period kind of, or,
would allow this to renew automatically without an active vote.
I was gonna suggest that, so that's good.
So I'd ask you tonight, and one of you hopefully would use most of this language to vote to move to continue the shared inspectional services agreement with the town of Wenham for the next year, with the understanding that the two boards are seeking an amendment from legal counsel that this vote won't be required annually. And we'll be getting some good language from KP Law on both our behalves sometime in the near future.
I'll give it a try.
Okay, all right.
And I'm gonna need help.
Mary Alice is right here to help.
I make a motion that we vote to continue the shared inspectional services with Wenham in the next year, but we're also going to be seeking language that would require no,
An amendment to the
an
termination clause.
amendment to the language so that we wouldn't have to continuously
Vote every year.
re-vote every year.
Thank you,
Good,
Darcy.
It's unwieldy, but
I'll second.
Second that, any further discussion?
Looking at my notes, I apologize. There was a handful of typos in the document that I had that I'm looking at this one, see if they're still in it. And another suggestion I had, because it's with the new kind of amendment to the agreement, would it still be by the 15th of January every year that we would have to reapprove,
So what we
or it
were
would just
seeking- what we were
run
seeking
if
is
we
that they
didn't?
would- What we were seeking is that by the 15th of January, you would have to take a vote that you wanted to leave, so that the other town would have time
Okay.
to organize its budgeting process.
All right.
And so, in this case, you currently have to vote to stay
To
in.
keep it, right.
And we'd actually seek that this would be an annual automatic renewal unless you vote to leave. So you'd still have the annual opportunity to leave. We'd know about this, I think, annually in the budget process. We start our budget process November, December. So well in advance of January 15th, we'd have an idea of, hey, this isn't working for us anymore, we think we need to
Right.
break it up. And we'd probably have, telegraphed that conversation with Wenham prior to a vote on the 15th. But this just keeps us from being in this kind of, we have a verbal agreement to extend until we actually get the vote, which is legal, but it's unwieldy and makes it seem like we're not doing the right thing, so.
Right. Yeah, that sounds good to me. And then I was looking at in Section 3 Inspectors D, talking about a operating plan, a yearly operating plan. Do we have that? Did we do that?
So, I'm not familiar with what you want out of an operating plan.
I guess it's saying operating plan should be prepared and submitted with the final decision therein to be determined by the lead party.
So we're planning to continue to operate as we have been operating for the last 18 months or so. So the idea would be, there has not been a plan submitted. If you want one, I will have one prepared for you and put forward, but the operating plan is to have.
I mean, is the operating plan basically just to keep the services as they were with the current hours and
Yes.
everything,
Yes.
Do we, I mean, here it's saying basically, it seems like we're supposed to be submitting a operating plan every year.
I think,
It's just a little confusing.
Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. I think it's the same question I had for the HR thing. But I think
Yeah.
what this is asking for is this is actually for just a schedule, basically. All
Yeah.
it is that operating hours, when I'm open for business in Hamilton,
Right.
when I'm open for business in Wenham. That's all it's asking for. That's
Right.
just, so if we can just come up with that, I think that would
new
suffice.
language too,
Yes.
you said,
Yes,
so.
so they didn't draw up the initial agreement, so they've
See
got
what
it,
they
they're
have to
reviewing it,
say.
so they may make some,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, sorry to interrupt, Joe, but I'm fine with the kind of approval for extension stuff if we can kind of look at some of the confusion in some of these little bits here that I'm.
I think the operating plan is just is just sort of,
And I'm still-
that's
I'm
really
s-
just the nuts and bolts of when he's there.
Right, and I still got a little rub about the hiring process and approval and stuff like that from the last time, and Joe knows that. So I will probably bring that up again.
Okay, so,
And then, just kind of a side note, Mr. Chair, before we
yeah,
get a vote here. So now we've got the shared services, right? In theory, we're saving some money with the shared service. We're getting some more services, so therefore we're getting more permits, more policing of our permits, stuff like that. Is there any kind of a way we can kind of track? It may not be available now because we've only been in it about a year now, but can we put on either a future docket or something like that to see some of these
Savings.
building permits and savings and stuff like that? Because, I want to make sure what we're doing is worthwhile here. I think it's, on the surface, it seems like it's good, but I want to make sure when it comes down to fiscal stuff that it's actually prudent.
So I'm making a note here for a future agenda to have a presentation from the Planning and Inspectional Services Director on how the program is operating. I can say that our permits are up, and so our revenue from permits is up, which are good signs. The program has, I think, been a little bit more expensive than you may have thought it was when you
Right, we had
first
some
passed it.
software things and
But,
stuff like that.
and all the software isn't even up and running yet, but we expect all of that in this
In this quarter.
quarter. So, we've seen an improvement in the way inspections are done, in our permit fees, in the number of permits that are being pulled, in the review of plans, and that's all positive. So, my understanding is that the additional revenue is outpacing the additional cost. So,
Okay.
we're at I believe we're at a net positive, but I'll have Patrick come and speak to that.
Is
Some of
it
those beginning costs, we won't have them
not
next year.
right? They're not recurring, right? Yeah.
I think one of our bigger costs was the software. Wenham already had the software, if I'm correct, and we didn't have anything that was compatible, if nothing at all. So that was a big leap for us to do
Is his
that.
schedule very specific, or does he, because the towns are so close, does he sort of intermingle the?
He has set office hours in each town,
Okay.
and then that he can plan his workday outside of what those office hours are. So when he has to go, he schedules inspections. If he doesn't have anything going on at a time of the day when he doesn't have to be in the office in Wenham, and he has an inspection in Hamilton, he can go do that inspection as he sees fit, or they can, obviously.
Right, and part of the hope with this joint venture was previously, a lot of builders, contractors, whatnot, were waiting,
Weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
and waiting, and now, it'd be good to hear some feedback on how hopefully smoothly things are moving.
Does he track his time based on Hamilton or Wenham?
He does, but under the agreement, that's the responsibility of Wenham to show us when they submit their invoice to us so they've done that just recently for the shared programs costs. So Marissa just got that in the last couple of weeks.
Interested to see how that works, based on his, is he forced it into the, or is it, he's saying, like, I'm gonna build 20 to this town, 20 to this town, or is he
I think he's got enough work to keep him busy right now.
Okay,
which
he's
is good.
accurately
And
keeping
we've had-
track of his time.
My
Okay.
understanding, anecdotally, what I've been told is that the inspections have gone pretty well out at Canterbrook, which, that's kind of a large 12 this year, 12 next year, and those inspections are all happening on time, and they're anticipated due course, so there's been no holdup out there, which is great, because that gets them open and occupied and on our.
It looks nice,
On
yeah,
our-
they look
They
nice,
said 9 have been sold.
Yeah, 8 or 9 have been
already.
sold,
That's
yeah.
pretty good.
non-residents unfortunately, but they look great.
Okay.
so we have
Got a motion.
a motion, it's been seconded, we've had some discussion. So, do we need a reminder of the motion, is everybody on the
Oh no, I'm gonna make Darcy say it
Vote to
again?
continue the shared inspectional services with Wenham in the next year, seeking an amendment to the language that would allow for automatic renewal every year. However, we can opt out every year whenever we need to,
By January.
All right,
January 15th.
Second.
Second.
it's been seconded,
Your
right?
It's a second.
Any discussion? No.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, excellent, great, thank you. Okay, Regional Human Resources intermunicipal.
So you have the IMA in here. I know you guys have approved it preliminarily. There've been a few minor tweaks. This document was initially drafted by MAPC on a technical assistance grant to the town, and then it's been reviewed by town council. It's fairly consistent with what KP Law usually uses as a template for regional agreements. And if you wanted to take a vote on it, or if you wanted to make some suggestions on changes to it, we'd be open to those. We're trying to get, I'm trying to get Manchester and Rockport to have their boards vote to approve the IMA soon. We have about 10 or 12 resumes in already. Some of them look very promising. Some of them are overqualified people from other parts of the country who I don't think really read the job description when they submitted. But I think that we're starting to get a sizable enough pool that the 3 administrators would be able to start an interview process.
I'm in favor of the agreement. I just, once again, back to this whole operational plan. What is the operational plan? Where did they sit here in Hamilton?
Who's responsible for it?
So in concept right now, what we'd have is that each community would have a landing spot, so to speak, for them, an office or a desk and a computer, and a private place for them to meet confidentially with employees as needed. And we would be, this employee would be a 40-hour-a-week employee with, how do we get to 13, and 14? Us as the host community would have the 14 hours, and the other 2 communities would have 13 each. And we carry it in the budget as the full salary in Hamilton, but then we also show revenue from the other 2 municipalities on the other side of this, on the other side of the ledger. So that's,
Would we be splitting OPEB, unemployment, all that kind of stuff?
yeah, so we're
Insurance,
gonna have
et
it in,
cetera.
and if it isn't already there, we've already asked to have it added, and I think it's been agreed to verbally, that the agreement would include a, and I know I talked about this with KP Law, so it should be in there, that version you have should have it, that if, in the event that the employee was laid off, the 3 communities would agree to split on their pro rata share the cost of the unemployment.
Yeah, I may be in here, but when I read over it, I didn't remember seeing that. That's
I
why
know there had
asked.
originally been a clause in there that specifically put it all on Hamilton, and I know that was
Yeah,
taken
no,
out.
I want to make sure
That was
that,
taken out.
I want to make sure that
We
it's
went back and forth on making sure that
spread
was in
out there.
So my question is more on the operational stuff, that, Wenham, Hamilton, joining towns, interwoven, driving around, not a big deal. So if she's
Like
14
you're
hours,
Rockport
okay, and I know I'm splitting hairs here, but he or she is driving back and forth, who bears the time for that? How is that factored into the hours?
So I
We
think
bill
that
it.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is that you, for the most part, you got 5 operating days a week, right? Each one of us is gonna have her have he or she for 1 full day.
Okay.
And then we have to figure out how to split the other days.
Okay.
Because there is a thing in here about mileage and stuff like that. I can't remember what part it's in, right? Am I making that up?
And there's also the fact that.
Budget fee structure
these
payments, I
agreements-
think.
And these agreements also, we want to leave some flexibility,
Right.
if I don't have any, pressing HR matters in a given
Right, they can
week,
be where they need to
They can
be.
be away where they need to be, and then, they'll just give me extra hours the following week when I might need them. So we're not, it's an apportionment, but it's not necessarily as strict. We're not having them punch a clock the minute they walk in town hall and punch out when they go out either.
And for this, we'll
And for
have,
this kind of position, a lot of it can be done remotely. They'll be able
Right.
to.
Be
they-
phone
we
call or
may-
whatever,
We may
yeah.
agree that, hey, you know what, all 3 of our towns close early on Friday, so on Friday, just work from home.
Right.
You can work on whoever's stuff you need to work on that week from home on a Friday. That might make it easier, might make it have more.
Yeah,
sense, so.
I'm obviously in favor of it. I just think that either the travel time, the travel expenses need to be sort of watched the first year to sort of manage the process and make sure
I
that,
think so.
um,
And that leads me into kind of, we'll be, I assume, tracking this in Munis, because we're billing the other communities.
Yep.
And then tracking of services, just the cost tracking would be nice to have on kind of, because I know this is another one that's like January 15th, I think, renewal or a extension. And so some type of a municipal, or not a municipal, munis report kind of before that, and a placeholder on our agenda for it, before the 15th of January. Kind of maybe even a report on how it's going for the first couple of years anyway.
I think, Sean, everything you asked about is addressed in 6A.
Yeah, I was just looking
And
at
E.
it. Yep. Yeah, because it's talking about liability insurance,
Yeah.
stipends, et cetera.
Yeah.
And when is KP Law going to review, and when will we have a final copy? Or are they just going to do minor edits, or?
I think that we're mostly in agreement. Some of these things that you're talking about as far as tracking, adding some language to watch and manage the travel type of things, I can have them add pretty quickly. And run that by the other two towns too, so that we can get it all in agreement.
Do we have
I wanna-
office space for them?
We have a cubicle, and then we'd need to, get some, do not enter signs for them. They need to meet in this space because we don't, in our
Right.
current town hall.
We don't have
arrangement,
a private conference room.
conference room
Right.
for them.
We do in the new one. We have,
Yeah, there's a few typos. Do
Yeah.
you want to know what?
yeah,
they are?
there's a term. So the last question I have is,
Circle them and send them to me?
yeah,
Or
ter-
There- It's only just a couple. It's easy.
termination.
Yeah,
Termination.
number- Well, three C,
Termination.
By my agreement,
yeah.
okay, 3C.
3C, supervision of
Termination.
SHRA, blah, blah. It says town manager is the last part there, or his, he, designee.
Yep.
And then 5 should be, I'm guessing, term/termination instead of termination.
Yep, term and then a splash mark.
Exactly.
You know what that one might have been is, we had lost track of in all the different versions, we had lost track of the most up-to-date Word version, so
Yep.
we had
Yeah, it probably
scanned
was a
through
little-
nuance this document to get it from PDF. So that was something that was
So-
probably.
So on that termination thing though, we just changed our
Yep, and you wanna
inspectional
change that?
services thing.
Right.
Can we change this too to basically say it
Yeah, I was
doesn't,
just gonna say that same.
it doesn't cancel,
Auto renew.
it doesn't, it only cancels if they vote to cancel.
Yeah.
Yep,
It automatically renews, right?
And then,
So this is all KP Law edits that they'll need to.
we can get them done, yep.
and it's talking about producing a financial report at year end, I believe, or who will be doing that.
Wouldn't that be our finance
That would be
director?
we're the host agency. We have to-
And then would we bill the other entities and split that cost?
Or that we built into the fee that we
Built
charge.
into the fee that we charge, okay.
Sorry,
Just because I want to be
Yeah.
aware of
And
Marissa
in
or
the
whoever
billing,
the
we're not
finance
just-
director's time
It's not
is.
just the 13
So I didn't
hours of
sign this
time,
one.
it's the indirect costs that
Okay.
we added to that bill.
Yeah, just because, I think all this stuff is great, but it's, we're always adding stuff on the people's plate that's already pretty full.
Yep.
So I want to be conscious of that.
Okay.
Yep.
So
So
what
I'll
would
take
we
these
like to
changes.
do?
I'll,
Make the
you know,
changes?
You vote to tell me to take these changes, I'll go get these changes made, circulate it to the other two towns, and then have a clean version from KP Law to
Go get
you.
That work with your timing of what you're trying to get
I
done?
think so.
Okay.
I mean, the agreement in principle and the earlier versions of the agreement have already been reviewed by FinCom last year when this was approved in the budget, so we'll of course share the updated document with them. It's where, I think where it's going along with security.
I'm looking forward to this coming to fruition. It's been a long
Yeah.
time coming.
You and me both.
It's tough to, not that anyone would ever have a problem with you, Joe, but to have a problem with your boss and have to talk to your boss about the problem you have with your boss, it's counterproductive, really, so. HR is something that's drastically needed.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. Finally, tonight, open the ATM annual warrant, discuss possible warrant articles.
So, to not belabor the discussion too much, I had our department heads, in particular, the finance department, produce a list of articles that is needed annually, and then we added some others that have come up, and those are in red at the top of the first page and at the bottom, or top and bottom of the third page. We can keep these, or add these, or take these off, or whatever you want. Some of them I think you want. Water enterprise budget, I think we want to make sure that stays in the warrant. But this is opening the discussion, if you want to read them into the record, and then start from there. And then you'll close the warrant in February, so this will be, you'll have a couple weeks to add things, or remove any of these things, or what have you.
I'll make a motion to open the warrant.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So you're suggesting that I read these,
You can?
just the topic, the highlighted
Yeah,
topics?
highlighted topics, yeah,
So these are, at the very least, these are,
for your consideration.
okay, for consideration. Let's see, budget article split, capital expenditures.
Can I back you up for just one
Yeah.
second, Mr. Chair? The budget article split would actually be 2 warrant articles.
Warrant articles, yes.
So just to clarify for folks at home, the first would be up to 5% to cover the town and the school budget, with a, 5% increase in that. And then anything above 5% to cover the school ask over 5% would be the second article.
And this is obviously still
That's-
in draft form and
Right,
being
draft
determined,
form.
but,
Correct, and this is very similar to what we did last time. We approached this very similar way with the way the school presented their budget and what we thought was appropriate at the time.
All right. Capital expenditures, I think I mentioned. General town departmental appropriations. Water enterprise budget. Annual financial actions. Community preservation budget. Annual budget for revolving funds. Hamilton Development Corporation. OPEB Trust Fund. Stabilization Fund. Capital Stabilization Fund. Patent Homestead Fund. Personnel Service and Union Contracts. Debt Authorization Town Hall Project. Let's see. Planning Board articles on open space farm protection development, an amendment to the Hamilton zoning bylaw. Okay, application of a bond premium. Acts of the 2010, Chapter 91. Revision of special town meetings, Article 3-3, amendment to income limitations for senior tax deferral. I think that's it. Some housekeeping.
so in the red below, do you have that?
Yeah.
I didn't see Rosie's
So
conservation.
it's in the
Oh,
red
At the
down
bottom,
I'm
Dean.
sorry.
down
All right.
at the
Enhanced
bottom.
wetlands.
So these are,
Bottom.
These are other articles, so a patent homestead article, a town hall project, that was mentioned earlier, it's here with
Yeah,
question marks.
okay.
Because, given what you had said.
Marsh rats.
Marsh rats, and it says marsh rents, so that was
Yeah.
not, that was a typo. Marsh rats, Lees. Master plan funding, capital items, again, capital plan was mentioned earlier. This would be, so that, this is a repeat, really. And then the enhanced wetlands protection
So
bylaw.
capital stabilization fund, who's putting that forward?
Capital stabilization fund is part of your automatic financial policies. So the capital stabilization fund.
Have we
there'll be
approved that?
Free cash votes, there'll be free cash votes in the budget.
But it says to establish a fund. We have not established the fund yet?
You established it last year.
Yeah, that's what I thought, so.
Yeah, this would just be to.
It's just be to-
a vote to
It's
appropriate-
just
Raise
to
appropriate,
continue
yeah,
it.
but the way it's written, it says to establish.
Yeah, it's just I'm gonna call it a typo there.
Yeah, it was,
We'll continue a capital
continue.
stabilization fund.
Have we heard anything from the capital committee yet?
Yeah.
Was it,
was
well,
a-
you were gone.
Oh, that was the day I was gone too?
You missed
Be sure to
everything.
get yourself a copy.
Homestead's on there.
It's really
I
great.
Actually,
It's very easy to read.
Homestead was on there already, sorry about that.
It's a good
Yeah,
roadmap.
Dave Thompson came and
Okay.
and presented to us.
Okay.
It was actually pretty encouraging. So,
And then are we gonna do it at town hall? We do anything with town hall if there's nothing to do? We're
I
still
was
gonna
gonna say, we're just gonna leave it as a placeholder.
Town hall, I think,
need more money
the
to,
idea would be just kind of, if, getting permission to maybe do a few-minute presentation on where things are, where things
Right.
stand, and what the new schedule is.
I think it'd be good to sort of
I
give
would,
some,
yeah, I'd say it'd be good to have it as
we're
a,
not voting on anything though.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
so there is, the CPA chair is considering asking if the town meeting would vote to agree to $2 million from CPA for the town hall and just have it set aside as
Hold
approved
it,
already.
okay.
And it wouldn't be spent until.
Earmark
or
it,
unless-
basically.
Basically
Yeah.
earmark it, and it
It's a
wouldn't
good
be-
idea.
wouldn't be spent until or unless the, a subsequent vote of town meeting and a town election appropriated the remaining funds.
right, and I think it's,
That was just an idea.
yeah, and I think it's good, even if CPC doesn't end up doing that, to leave this article on the warrant, because we basically said at last town meeting, we would have something for spring town meeting, or annual town meeting, so this keeps it going and relevant and in people's minds, and then they can have time to make a presentation. We'll just take no action on the floor if we need
I
to.
think that's a good idea.
Would it be a warrant article or more of a report?
Well, we could put it as a warrant article
And
and
then-
then
and then
take
have
no
a report
action.
out and take no
And then
action.
have a report instead of
All right,
a vote.
okay. Yeah, the
Anything else,
CPA ask, I think people are gonna look for us to some direction, because given what the schools may be asking for at this town meeting,
Yeah.
it could be difficult to also go and ask for a $2 million earmark. So,
Well, except that
Something to
the
think about.
CPA money can't really go to the schools,
no doubt,
for the operating side.
it's
but-
just spend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that your town has gotten used to having a CPA request every year, but certainly state law doesn't require you to appropriate any of that money every year.
Right.
So it's really what the board wants to advise the CPC to consider.
Right. And plus, if it's
pros
a,
and cons of both.
if it's a CPC ask, I mean, it's a surcharge on your taxes, but it's not coming from general fund to raise
Right.
any more taxes. It's money that's already coming out of the tax roll.
Right,
So that $2 million, it's coming out of the same pocket, but it's a little bit of a
Right.
different action of it, so it's not raising the tax rate at the moment. Whereas if it was $2 million out of the general fund, it would be a different
Right.
But
story.
if ultimately the town does decide to use some money out of the CPC, and thereby able to reduce the amount of money that they go out to bond,
Yeah.
Right.
that would reduce the size of the.
Correct.
The debt exclusion vote, and maybe make it more palatable to
Right.
voters, so it's.
And
We would
what's,
save up for it.
right,
Right, I mean, if you think we've got, we're roughly $8-9 million for the town hall and $2 million from the CPC, the money we've already put into it, that number is going
Right,
down
that
to
number down.
6 million or 5 million,
Right.
or, then it's a more palatable thing for
Right.
people, even though it's a huge number still, but.
Sounds better.
exactly.
What does CPC have in its availability now?
I don't want to, Marissa will prepare a report for this budget process.
5-something,
500-something thousand dollars.
530 or something like that at our
And
last
then they have
meeting.
a forecast for what they'd expect to get this year if you stay at the 2%. That was the other question I was asked today, was do we anticipate CPA wanting to seek a warrant question to increase up to 3%?
You get bang for the buck is unbelievable.
You get a
Yeah.
lot more bang.
You get a lot more
Yeah.
bang for the buck, but I think that requires an election vote too. So it
It's-
would have to be approved at town meeting and then approved on the ballot the following
And
Thursday.
I believe it would have to be a citizen's petition to raise it. Because the original CPC was a citizen's petition. And I think the match right now is about 14%,
Yeah, I think
right.
that's what I
but
said.
they've just released that 20 or 25 million, and they haven't quite figured out.
Surplus. So they did announce that they were gonna be sharing that as a surplus distribution from CPA. And I sent a text to Bo, who I know, and he confirmed for me verbally, he confirmed for me at the MMA's this past weekend that that surplus will be treated the same way the first round money is treated, so that we'd have access to it.
And that's good.
There was some discussion because
Whether it be the 3%
the original
or-
announcement was, not definitive, whether it would be treated as a second,
First round
third
or
round,
second
or
round,
first
yeah.
round. And so, what I've been told is that it's gonna be treated, and we would have our
First round.
share of that, based on first round, so.
Okay.
If we
Has
get all
anybody,
that money.
the only,
I wanna see it in writing, but
Yeah.
I believe my source.
Right.
I trust my source very much.
I don't know if anybody else has heard, the only other possible citizens petition I've heard about on Facebook is for the trash program.
So, I think there's some confusion in that the town does have a bylaw that says that the Board of Selectmen established the program. Absent that bylaw, the Board of Selectmen would still establish a program. I asked KP Law after you first took the vote for a kind of quick review, and there is no mechanism to have any other entity or any other branch of the town government establish the trash program. The trash program is part of the responsibility of the executive branch. The town meeting could appropriate funds, the town meeting can pass bylaws, they can certainly rescind a bylaw. Absent the bylaw, it would still be your responsibility to establish a program under Mass state law, so.
Got it, okay,
Similar to like where the water commissioners would
all right.
make the ultimate decision.
Anybody else hear any other citizen petition?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay,
Other than the trash thing that you mentioned, I haven't heard it.
okay, all right. Good.
When is the deadline for citizens petitions?
I believe February 10th, based, if they have to come in.
Based on
time
the
for us
calendar
to
and
have them
posting
on
and everything.
February 10th.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
We-
All right. Anything else on this? We good? Yeah, all right.
You want to give me topics for other meetings, or? I
Yeah.
know our next meeting is only about the budget. Presentation
Okay.
is joint next Monday with the FinCom here,
Yeah,
so we have to get extra chairs in up here. And
You said there was a meeting Wednesday?
Yeah,
there's a school committee meeting, the
FinComs.
the annual regional school committee meeting with the FinComs and the boards of selectmen. So we'll be in the Bucher cafetorium in that big, huge
Yep.
table, and we'll all be sitting around the table talking about the school's budget request.
And it's just 7 to 9, because I imagine that could go on until
Well,
midnight.
it's written as 7 to 9. I don't know if it'll linger past that, but I know that the superintendent is trying to keep, she's trying to designate, amounts of time for different things in the
Right.
agenda, so she's trying to keep it quick.
And you're doing a presentation?
I'm doing a short presentation, as will Anthony and Saldi.
Anthony.
Primarily, the meeting's about their budget.
Right.
Our presentation is to kind of give them
We give them a
an
general
understanding of what our situation is.
Right. Hopefully they understand it.
all right.
I only had two questions for future meetings. One was the cell phone. Have I missed a discussion on that? Is there an update on the cell phone tower?
Tower?
No, I was trying to contact MHC today because there've been a lot of questions about that, and some misinformation in the public space and social media as well.
Can we give an update next meeting?
Yes, as I said, I tried MHC
Yeah.
twice. The folks there
Okay.
didn't return my call, so I will try again tomorrow.
Yeah, but next, I mean, we had 2 weeks, but yeah.
I'll have an answer for
Okay.
you at the next meeting.
And the other thing too is I'm having surgery in March. I'm going to be out for about a month, so I want to be able to call in. So if there are any special protocols we need to set up in advance?
I'll ask
That,
people
I would make
to
sure
write
that-
up
yeah.
what the protocol.
Last time we sort of did that, there was some gray area. I want to make sure there's no gray area.
Okay.
So me voting on the articles, I want to make sure I can vote from a phone.
Get a clicker.
Great idea, Darcy.
I was going to say, get a wheelchair.
Get a wheelchair.
Sorry, Bill.
Why don't we come to your house and we'll all sit
Yeah, how about
around?
that?
There you
Oh,
go.
wouldn't
So,
that
Bill, will you be present at town meeting on April 4th?
I should be. My surgery's March 2nd, and I should be fine. I should be a 3 to 4 week recovery. I should be fine.
Sounds orthopedic or appendix to me, sorry.
HIPAA violation.
I didn't specifically say what it was. I have no clue.
Perfect.
May I make a motion?
Hope
Sure.
so.
Yes, that we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All right.
Some discussion.
Yeah.
No.
Further discussion about that.
The only discussion I have is that Corinne Kell is running for town clerk, so that's
great.
kind of nice, yeah.
Town clerk.
There's al-
She'll
Yeah,
leave it
and
at
just, there's
Wow.
So
also,
she's going to the Town Clerks Association meeting in Devon's.
Yep.
But other than that, I'm ready to adjourn.
Okay.
and then just for the folks at home too, we have a planning board opening. And one seat on this board.
One seat on this board.
And
You have 2 planning board openings.
Two planning board, right.
Two seats
Oh.
on the planning
Two
board.
seats
Only
on
one
this
candidate,
board.
only one candidate has pulled papers so far for the planning board
I thought there were
openings.
3 seats.
I was told
There's
today
an-
that there were 2.
I think
and
there's
only
2
one.
and an alternate maybe.
Oh,
And there's
I'll
only.
have to confirm
Yeah,
that. but-
yeah, but you don't elect the alternate.
You don't elect the
And
alternate.
the
We-
alternate was just appointed, elevated up by
Right.
joint
We moved
vote.
them into the empty
So-
seat,
So
right.
there's an opening there.
I thought the people who were up are Walsh, Boroff, and Peter Clark.
I know that I was told that the seats were Clark and Boroff. I was told 2 seats, but I'll confirm that again tomorrow.
Because, who's it? Ms.
she filling a
Walsh,
term?
she's filling
Oh.
Janelle's
Janelle's
spot.
Term, so
seat
she has to
until
run-
the next
run for it, so
meeting.
I'll
Running for
confirm
a
with
seat
that.
then,
I'll
so maybe
confirm
that
with-
is right.
Right, right.
Yeah, because the alternate, right.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded and discussed, actually, believe it or not. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
oh, before you guys go, there's a cemetery
Okay.
Do we
Is there another one?
tell anybody about
Joe,
your
I've only got
signature?
3 pages.